Okay, seeing as how I've been a little obsessed with these charts and multiverse timelines lately in genre cinema, and since we have a new Halloween film to look forward to, I thought for shits and giggles I would share this with you. This is the infancy version of the Halloween chart. This will at some point, I'm sure, be transformed into a much more professional graphic on a much more professional video. But okay, starting off here, you can read that with the original Halloween up top, and Halloween 2 directly following below, of course. And interestingly, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch actually exists in a universe that contains, I'm going to say, at least the first two. The commercial is playing on the TV in 3, but, and I'm going to assume at that point, you know, like, we're in real time, so the sequel has happened. It's just not being shown on network television. But also, I'm going to assume that none of the other films exist in this universe, you know, because after this point, of course, all the kids' heads turned into bugs and steaks and probably killed all the parents, and there weren't any more Halloween sequels. So moving on here, the timeline splits between the Thorn trilogy and the Miramax reboots. And then, coming along over here, now see what happened in Halloween 2. Basically, this is all John Carpenter's fault, because he took the assignment of writing Halloween 2 with Deborah Hill, and didn't give a shit, and couldn't convince himself to give a shit. He got drunk on Budweiser every night of writing the script, and I think, you know, Return of the Jedi or something had just come out, so he was like, oh, brother and sister, sure. Something, that's the rumor, that's the urban legend. But, yeah, his heart was not in it, and therefore we have a very faulty, very inferior sequel, which has aged remarkably well, don't get me wrong, quite by accident. But, you know, it still feels like it lives in that Halloween universe, and it's a direct continuation of the night and everything about it. It's set up so wonderfully, except for this kind of piss-poor script by Carpenter, and yeah, I think kind of a cynicism, giving in to the splatter, kind of mean-spirited edge that the films that came in the wake of Halloween made so popular with the kids, and which is a bummer. You know, like the idea in Carpenter's mind that fans of the original film were too jaded now after like 2 years of splatter slasher movies to come back to this, you know, atmospheric, tasteful one and have the same experience with it. You know, I mean, I guess he had a bad experience with The Fog, which was also a much more restrained, you know, could have been PG practically film, and it didn't get the best reviews. I consider it a minor classic, definitely Golden Age Carpenter, but not quite a masterpiece. Not even quite a classic the way that Halloween is, but I love it, of course. Where was I? Right, Halloween 3. No, Halloween 2, yes. And that just caused everything to get all fucked up. And, you know, if one thing or the other had happened, if John Carpenter had been offered, or been allowed to do, you know, the anthology thing from part 2, from the get-go, I think everything would have been fine. And the film might have been very successful, and Carpenter might have had a much more prolific creative streak following that timeline. And I'm sure he was upset that he didn't get that. And it's very awkward to all of a sudden try to do that after you've made 2 movies, you know. So it's just a bummer the way it all worked out. And it's a bummer as well that Carpenter couldn't man up a little bit and just, you know, he comes from this exploitation, he came from this exploitation Corman kind of school, where you do what you can with what you have, and you are as creative as possible within the constraints that the project has given you. And in a studio film, you've got a very different set of constraints. You know, you have to do what you're told sometimes, and you have to, you know, like they wanted to get the royalties for they missed out on for the original Halloween, so they had to participate in this thing. And I think he just felt spiteful on some level about it. So, anyways, 40 years later, John Carpenter has boldly, nobly decided to travel back in time to repair the fracture in the timeline. And at the very least, give us a film, Halloween 2018, where, and I can't but be cynical about the track record of the writer and director duo on board this thing, but I do definitely believe their passion and their intention to make a film that's worthy of the original. And it's the first time that has happened, really, ever. So, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, it could be mediocre or it could suck, but you know, his efforts will not have been in vain. We'll at least have a repaired timeline that we can shoot off from, maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens if Myers can be killed in this film or not. Hope not.